Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Haggins. Thank you, Rockin Customs, for having me on today. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about how to build a tone from scratch. I've been playing guitar for 15 or 16 years now, and I've gone through the whole process of like starting with nothing and then having a lot, and I've learned a lot of things along the way. Um, I have been in recording studios. I have traveled a little bit to play guitar around Central Florida. So I wanted to teach you, I guess, my process for building a tone. So for today's purposes, we're going to be running direct, and I am using the DSM and Humboldt simplifier, um, and we're going to be running in stereo, and also my guitar. It's a Sublime Chieftain Deluxe, the stock pickups, which I believe are Porters, and uh, they're P90 model. So yeah, so when it comes to tone, I feel like the first two things that are important are your guitar and your amp. And usually when I'm going to like craft a tone, especially when I play in my cover band, where I actually use a real amp. Whenever I go to set up, I start first by just plugging my guitar straight into the amp, because as you're moving it, the knobs turn and stuff. So I just want to make sure that that gets set right. So I'm gonna kind of model that today, even though that we're running direct, and I'm a little bit more familiar with the system. So my guitar right now, all my knobs are at 10, so they're cranked all the way on, and all the knobs on the simplifier are down right now. I am going to crank the volume to noon so we can actually hear something. Oh, maybe we can't still hear something. Let's turn the gain up a little bit. Not sure what the input is there, but this is where I typically set it. I set it at 9 o'clock. And the reason why I do that is because I feel like that's the edge of breakup. So the edge of breakup is that point in an amp where when you play light, it's pretty clean. But when you dig into it, you get a little bit more breakup. And mine's probably maybe a little bit dirtier than most, but that's just typically how I like to run it. So if I were to take this knob down a little bit more, so I turn the gain down, but I turn the volume up a little bit so we can still hear it. Even as I dig into it, it's not breaking up quite as much as I would like. So that's why I want to add more gain into it. And gain is just the strength of your signal. And while the adverse effect is that the volume does increase when you turn the gain up, it's different than the volume. So now with the gain cranked up a little bit, and I set the volume back down, you can kind of hear how it's got a little bit of crunch to it already. Now the next thing that I think we should do on the simplifier is work with these knobs right here. So this is the simulated mic positioning, and on a real amp, you probably want to mess with that. Either that or the 3-band EQ. But I feel like on this unit in particular, it's important to get the mic positioning first. So this way it would be like all the way on the edge of the comb, and then all the way to about, what's that, 5 o'clock or so would be in the right smack dab in the center. So here's where it was set. Now I'm going to set both of those to all the way there. And you can already tell it's much brighter. It's a little bit too bright for me. So I think I'm going to actually bring that down a little bit, maybe like halfway between. This is also dependent on your guitar. Some guitars are brighter than others, and some guitars are darker than others. So with these P90s, I just feel like it fits best kind of right in the middle. And if I were miking an actual amp, I would angle it to where it's halfway in between the very edge of it and then in the center. So mic positioning is very, very important when it comes to tone. So let's hear what that sounds like now. I like that sound. You might not like that sound, but I like that sound. It's well balanced. You got highs in there and lows, and we can add even more on top of that. So now that we got a good mic positioning, let's work on our 3-band EQ. So I'm gonna play this chord here. Pretty decent. But we have this treble knob here. Let's see what that sounds like when I turn it up a little bit. I like it. You know, I don't know the exact like frequencies and sciences behind it. I mean, a lot of it is just like listening and deciding I like that or I don't like that. I mean, if I turn it the opposite way, I mean, you can just hear it's way more muffled, which that might be something that you're wanting to go for, but I like a little bit more of kind of like a chimey sound and a little bit more transparency in my sound. So I like to put a little bit more into that. I also just turned up the bass a little bit. It was at 12. Now it's at about like 1 or 2 o'clock. Give it a little bit more body. All right. And I think it's pretty good in the mid-range as it is. I find on the simplifier, I don't really mess with the mid-range knob too often, even like in between different guitars and stuff. It's mostly the treble and the bass. And that's just kind of how I like to set it. So the next knobs I want to draw attention to is you got your presence. Is that presence? Yes, that's presence. And presence is just higher frequency on the more treble side. Here's what it sounded like originally. And now I'm going to slowly roll up the presence so you can hear how that changes. So that's all the way. It's a little bit too country for me. So I think I'll probably leave it at noon. So that's got a nice little sparkly tone to it. So the way I just approach tone on the guitar is I like it just to be super like present, I guess is the best word. Like it's not sitting in the background of my ears, but it's like right in front of my face sort of feeling. And I feel like that's just done best by making sure you have enough highs in there and mids. The guitar is a natural like mid-range instrument because of the frequencies that can play. So making sure that those stand out too is really important. So I just turned up the resonance knob here. It was here and now it's here. This will add a little bit more to the low end just on a different frequency spectrum. Here's what it sounds like turned up all the way, which is a little too muffled for me. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit. That actually sounds pretty good to me right there. So I think I'll leave that there. A bunch of these other little dip switches that we have here, it's just some of the features that are on the simplifier where you can control different preamps here. Basically, you can switch between a Vox style, a Fender style, or a Marshall style. Even though it doesn't say that, it's kind of implied. And then you can switch in between different tubes as well in the preamp section. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's the preamp section. Hopefully I'm right about that and I don't get chewed out online. And then here you can switch in between 1x12, a 2x12, or 4x12, independent on each side. I typically like a huge sound, so I like the 4x12 setting, and I like the Marshall setting here. And currently, I'm running the 6L6 setting. Let's see what these different two settings sound like. This is 6L6. I'm going to play in a different key besides G. Alright, and then let's hear what the EL 34s sound like. Definitely a lot warmer. And then the KT88s. Oh, that was KT88s. Okay. Here's the 34s. All right. And then now the KT88s. Cool. So I think I'm going to go back to where I was with the 6L6s. Just a little bit more, doesn't sound as muffled to me. And when it comes to the actual guitar, when you're building your tone, you kind of want to make sure that you build a tone where you're basing it around like what your kind of default tone is, right? So normally I play around the bridge. So I'm going to build a tone around this setting because that's kind of like my bread and butter for this particular guitar. On my Strat that I play, I usually like playing on the neck or in position 2, which is bridge and middle. So I might build my tone a little bit differently around that guitar. So when I flip to this neck here though, I still like the sound of that. And so I'm not going to make any changes right now, but if I didn't quite like the sound of that, I would just make just very minimal changes so that it's not affecting my bread and butter tone. So super important, the guitar. Make sure you get the kind of guitar that you want for your style of music, whether it's blues, jazz, worship music, country, or metal or whatever it is. It's really, really important because certain guitars work well for certain genres, sound-wise. And then your amp is really, really important too. If I'm not running through this, I have a Vox AC15 that I love to run out of. It's got a nice chimey high end that Voxes are notorious for. And to my ears, it just sounds the best.